Hi, my name's Matt. Today we're going to take a look at the final day of John F. Kennedy. We've done our research and looked behind Oswald, and we've looked into John F. Kennedy. And we'd like you to join us as we review some of the locations where John F. Kennedy was.
With the sound of 3 shots, John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas, Texas, on a day and time that many Americans around at that time would never forget. And while they remember Dallas, they remember the large crowds, the bustling city, the people waving, and especially that horrid second on Dealey Plaza on Elm Street. Many actually forget that the day didn't start in Dallas. It actually started in Fort Worth, Texas, a mere 30-minute drive. And it all started here at the old Hotel Texas, to which Brett and I visited. John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline Kennedy had spent the night here, and this is the final place John F. Kennedy would sleep. As Matt would say earlier, we really dug in and did our research, and we wanted to find out the official timeline of what happened the days leading up, and especially that day.
Thursday, November 21st, 1963. Oswald asked Frazier for an unusual midday ride to get some curtain rods. The next morning, the day of the assassination, he returned to Dallas with Frazier, leaving $170 in his wedding band, but bringing with him a large paper bag.
Kennedy would awake here at the Hotel Texas, attend a breakfast, as well as give a speech there, but more famously give a speech outside.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are no faint hearts in Fort Worth.
After his speeches, he would make a short flight from Carswell Air Force Base to Love Field in Dallas, Texas. Upon arriving, he would get into the now infamous 1961 Lincoln Continental, which is now on display in Dearborn, Michigan, to which Matt was able to visit at the Henry Ford Museum.
On the way to the Schoolbook Depository, Oswald was pretty quiet, which wasn't unusual. But when Frazier asked him what was in the bag, he replied with curtain rods. And we know the day before is when he got his curtain rods. Upon arriving, he ended up walking in first, which is quite unusual. They normally walk in together.
Abraham Zapruder worked in the clothing industry on the 4th floor that was near the Schoolbook Depository. So Abraham Zapruder was using an 8mm Bell & Howell Director's Edition Model 414 PD, which was top class of its time. And he was originally going to film the motorcade from his office window, but decided to get a more better view of it and went down to the grassy knoll. Decided to film on a concrete pergola north side of the grassy knoll on Elm, which was prime view of the motorcade.
The crowds were large through Dallas, but as the motorcade made its turn onto Houston Street, they began to thin. Kennedy's motorcade would run along the fountains of Dealey Plaza before making that fateful turn onto Elm Street.
Mrs. Connolly turned to Kennedy and said, "Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you." To which Kennedy replied, "No, you certainly can't." These would become his final words.
The Zapruder film, which showed Kennedy turning onto Elm Street, waving at the crowd before coming out from behind the highway sign, clenching at his throat, before leaning to his left towards Jackie Kennedy before being hit in the head. This shot would come directly in front of Zapruder.
So the Zapruder film has been the most well-known and best documented footage of the events on November 22nd, 1963. And it has been used multiple times to kind of decipher between all of the different scenarios that could have played out that day.
After Oswald allegedly took those 3 shots, he ran down the stairs, and 90 seconds later, after he went from the 6th floor to the 2nd floor, he ran into the kitchen where he encountered a police officer from Dallas County. The officer said that he was very calm and wasn't out of breath. He even had a can of Coca-Cola. He did seem startled when a gun was pointed at him, though. It was reported that Oswald simply just walked out the door.
JFK was quickly rushed to the emergency room at Parkland Hospital, but Jackie, as well as Clint Hill, both knew it was too late, and at 1 p.m. Dallas time, JFK was pronounced dead. After catching a bus, getting off because of crowds, getting to a cab, going home, getting a gun, walking the streets, roughly about 1:04 or 1:07, Lee Harvey Oswald reportedly shot J.D. Tippit. Tippit had noticed him and thought he resembled the possible suspect description. When getting out of his car for questioning, Oswald shot him.
After a tip-off, the officers went to a theater. After a brief struggle, they finally captured Lee Harvey Oswald.
I was questioned by a judge. However, I protested at that time that I was not allowed legal representation.
November 24th, Oswald was being escorted to an armored vehicle when he was shot by Jack Ruby, a local nightclub owner.
Oswald was rushed to Parkland Hospital after being shot by Jack Ruby, but just like JFK, he'd be pronounced dead at Parkland Hospital. So in a weird coincidence, Lee Harvey Oswald would be pronounced dead at the same hospital as John F. Kennedy, as well as Lee Harvey Oswald's killer, Jack Ruby, and the filmer of the assassination, Abraham Zapruder, would all be pronounced dead at Parkland Memorial Hospital.
We're going to splice in a little bit of his grave.
I've never actually seen it, so. But they said it was unmarked.
Yeah.
I've heard so many different stories that it was unmarked, and I don't know if that's the correct.
Yeah, originally, like it said, Lee Harvey and all that, and because people would desecrate and stuff, they took that out.
Who's that? Oh, just some guy that just decided to...
No, so they'd always ask where he was, because he was unmarked at one point. And they're like, oh, next to the beef. And so when they finally got this, someone actually put a fake one down, so he's next to the beef. Yeah.
So they just decided to... Well, I'd asked him in the front, we're fixing to bury my father-in-law, and I was like, okay, where's Oswald? I know he's here.
Both Lee Harvey Oswald as well as John F. Kennedy were laid to rest on Monday, the 25th. Lee Harvey Oswald did not have many people show up to his, and actually some of the paparazzi had helped be pallbearers, which is in stark contrast of John F. Kennedy's, which was mourned by the masses. He was laid to rest here at Arlington National Cemetery, eventually joined by his wife, Jackie Kennedy, as well as his brother down the hill, Bobby Kennedy. His life and legacy will live on forever, the eternal flame burning as a symbol of this memento. And just a quick shout out to my dad, Ron Cool, who helped send me these pictures when he had visited Arlington back in the day.
Beautiful.
In another coincidence, the 2020 White House ornament was actually that of John F. Kennedy. So, of course, I had to get it. I picked it up and it came in this really nice box. We're going to do a quick unboxing. It shows you the Christmas picture for Jackie and Jack, as well as it has this ornament that features the presidential picture. Obviously, this was to symbolize his unfinished presidency, but the detail on this is pretty nice, I would have to say. Definitely exquisite and very well made. Something that, well, didn't make it on the Christmas tree. Definitely something that I'll have to display in my John F. Kennedy collection. So obviously there is a ton of conspiracy theories surrounding what happened that day, who did it, who's behind it. And I gotta say, to go into all that would be like a 4 or 5 hour episode. So, we're not going to go into any of the conspiracy theories in this episode, but possibly in the future we will do some conspiracy episodes. So this is the famous grassy knoll. So this is the train tower where Lee Bowers was sitting, obviously the train control tower. He is said to have witnessed at least some puff of smoke. Some people say it came from behind the fence, some people say it came in front of the fence. Definitely fuels some of the conspiracy theories. And one last sentiment, in Dallas, it definitely seems like a lot of people thought Lee Harvey was innocent, and I'll just let you see at least what word is scratched off at the Texas Schoolbook Depository Building.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, with this look at kind of what happened, minute by minute, hour by hour. This was all the events that, we know happened pretty much for sure. But we do understand that there are the controversies out there, and there might be some other stuff. We're definitely going to be checking that out here in the upcoming year. So stick with us on that. As of right now, any other reviews we got right here on this link above my head. And over here, check out our Culz Paranormal link. And don't forget to give us a like and subscribe.